Welcome to AstroTwins Radio, your cosmic GPS for life, love, and everything written in the stars. We're Tali and Ophira Edut, the AstroTwins, here to decode the astrology of the moment and help you navigate your destiny like a pro. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our weekly horoscope podcast for the week of June 2nd to 8th. Tali in Seattle.
And Ophi in New York.
But we're going to be together in just a couple days in our hometown of Detroit, which is very fitting this week because we have some very localized, cozy, family-oriented transits happening. We have a quarter moon in Virgo, Venus moving into Taurus, and Mercury rounding out the week, moving into Cancer, just at a very short tour through Gemini. But this is also the last week of a year-long trek of Jupiter through Gemini. Now, Gemini is the sign that rules your local activities, and Jupiter's travel. It also rules transportation. So heading home to the Motor City feels pretty meaningful. We'll be there.
And as twins together, we're going to be there for Summit Detroit, which is also very Jupiter and Gemini, because Jupiter is about big ideas and Gemini conversation. So Summit is an amazing conference of innovators and creatives and thought leaders and just big idea people getting together to talk about how we can build community all over the world and be at the forefront of change. So
talks and workshops and hands-on interactive and everything from cooking to AI to tech. There's some big names there. I saw Prof G is going to be there and some big people. Now we're going to be there giving two talks, one on business and wealth trends and another one on love and compatibility. So if you are coming to Summit, make sure that we get to connect with you there. Come see us talk. And if you're interested in finding out more, we'll drop the link in the show notes as we have for the past few weeks.
It feels like very Jupiter and Gemini to like jump in at the very last minute. So if you still can, you can. But we'll bring back some interesting ideas to share. I'm sure we'll be recording our next week's podcast from Detroit together. Those final moments of Jupiter and Gemini. But we're going to talk about that. Today we're going to look at what we've learned over this last year while Jupiter has been in the sign of the twins since May 25th of 20. And that sounds like fun. And part of it was, but there were also some challenges. Jupiter is not always that comfortable in Gemini. Jupiter is about big, expansive ideas, and Gemini is more detail focused, local. Jupiter is global. And indeed, we saw a lot of that contrast and duality. We're going to do a little retrospective. What we saw. Yeah, a little retrospective to round it out and help you digest. Astrology is not only a great forecasting tool, it's also a palate cleanser. When you've gone through a tough time in life, you can look back and be like, well, the planets kind of showed it. Hindsight is 2020 in astrology as well.
It is. And we learn so much from studying the patterns. They call it mundane astrology in astro speak. That's, studying historical trends to form hypotheses. And we do see recurring trends happening. That's one of our favorite things to do and how we kind of do our trend casting. But just focusing in on the very interactive, more granular aspects of the week before we get big and lofty with Jupiter. We do start out Monday with a waxing quarter moon in Virgo. So that's on the heels of the new moon in Gemini we had last week. And this balancing quarter moon sits between the full moon in Sag and the new moon in Gemini. So that's a mutable energy. So it's a time to assess your systems and maybe take a look at things. We have RFK Jr.,
Mm.
abolishing the, bird flu vaccine. And we have,
Telling, pregnant mothers and quote unquote healthy children they don't need a COVID booster shot. Virgo is the sign of health and wellness of Tali. If you didn't say, maybe you did, but
I didn't,
um
no, thanks for
yeah,
putting that in. Yeah.
so we will see a spotlight. Now let's real quick quarter moon. So every week there's a new moon phase. There are 8 main moon phases, but there's a new moon, and then 2 weeks later there's a full moon. So in between, and the weeks in between those, there's a quarter moon. So the waxing quarter moon is in the week between the new and full. It's waxing full. And then in the week between the full and the new moon, there's a waning quarter moon, meaning the moon is disappearing from our sight. So waxing is a becoming, but these quarter moons are checkpoints. They're
Hmm.
times to calibrate. At the new moon, you set intentions or something begins, whether you set an intention or not. And the full moon is the kind of full ripened manifestation point. So that quarter moon is a time to calibrate and course correct. All right, you set an intention at the Gemini new moon last Monday. Now here we are at the quarter moon. How's it going? Before we get all the way to the Sagittarius full moon on June 11th, how are we doing? Is there something we should do differently to get ourselves even closer
And even
to
in
that
the
manifesting? Yeah.
admin aspect of it, because Virgo is the administrative pro. So it's like, are there appointments that need to be booked? Are there things that need to
Right.
get scheduled? And especially around wellness, self care, or simply just making sure you've got your bases covered.
And I feel like Virgo's also the fact checker. So a Gemini moon would get a lot of news and information out there and misinformation. It's very interesting that Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, is a Virgo because, the lies she spews are so unlike what her sign's highest vibration would be. So, but she is in a position where she's supposed to be, managing the media and making sure things are factual. Unfortunately, she's doing the opposite, but she does occupy a role that would typically be a good one for a Virgo, just not an evil Virgo, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, Virgo is a mutable sign, let us not forget. So, as analytical as it can be, it can also be flexible with the truth as it wishes,
Yeah, well, Mercury, which is the messenger, rules both Gemini and Virgo. So, this 1 week period we're in, again, that flurry of news is par for the course, and there'll be more this week.
Yeah, get your facts straight though. On Friday, and that includes in love, on
Mhm.
Friday, finally, Venus is saying goodbye to Aries, where it has spent an interminable amount of
So
time
done. I
this
liked it at
year.
first, but I'm like, all right, let's move on now,
Yeah,
Venus.
Venus goes into its home sign of Taurus June 6th to July 4th. Now it's been in Aries on and off throughout the year. February 4th, all the way until March 1st, direct, and then retrograde through Aries, March 27th, and it moved back into Pisces and returned to Aries in direct motion on April 30th, and it's been there ever since. So this Friday, June 6th, it finally leaves Aries. Now, if you are in Aries, you probably enjoyed having Venus there. Um, you know, Venus does not love being in Aries. It's actually uh, one of, just like Jupiter and Gemini, it's in detriment there. So, meaning it's in the opposite of its home sign. Venus feels very comfortable in Libra, this, one of the signs that rules Libra and Taurus. But in Aries, it's like a little bit of a tight fit. Venus wants to luxuriate and just take its time. And Aries is like, get to the point already, let's go. And can be a little impulsive. So if you spent this year either This is, some people may have been impulsive in love, but more than anything, I think Venus and Aries did help promote self-sovereignty for a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, it hasn't been bad. It's kind of just a little always on edge. So Venus ruling peace and harmony, Aries being the sign of conflict, war, or just, Venus being about cooperation and harmonizing, Aries the sign of the self. I don't know how many narcissism TikToks I was served by my algorithm, but it was a whole lot. So
Venus in
um
Aries is obsessed with calling everyone a narcissist. Everyone's a narcissist if they make one wrong move with
Well,
Venus
now they're going to be
Aries.
hedonists with Venus and Taurus because
Right.
Venus is at home. It's in one of the signs it rules, like you said, and yeah, so it's a nice indulgent month ahead where we can just maybe relax a little, enjoy some nature. Um, better weather in June, outdoor dining, cocktails on the rooftop. It's a time for like some practical luxury and indulgences and decadence, not over the top, wasteful, but if you're gonna be decadent, I guess.
Yeah. Some good old fashioned TLC as well. Like I think it'll maybe help people to bring a little greater appreciation to a simple conversation, holding
Hmm.
hands, a moment of time. I'm finally watching
Go get that
Bridgerton.
massage.
Yeah, I'm finally watching season 3 of Bridgerton, and I'm just thinking about, Penny, just bandaging up Colin Bridgerton's hand and that simple touch and how it just rippled through. So yeah, it's like
So not Venus and Aries, so Venus and
Venus and
Taurus.
Taurus is full brocade, come to the sitting room, Bridgerton vibe. So if you
And if
wanna
you are a Taurus, you'll be really glad because there's been Aries for Taurus. If we go based on your sun sign, is your 12th house, which is kind of foggy and heavy and just, you've had Saturn go into Aries, Neptune go into Aries, Venus in Aries. It's been a little relentless. So I think, the earth signs, especially maybe Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, may feel a little relief to have some earth Venus energy.
I think we all will, honestly. And then on Sunday, Mercury and Jupiter, the two big mouth planets, are really
Yeah.
in sync right now. So early on Sunday, there's a Mercury Jupiter conjunction. They're meeting up at the very end of Gemini. And, God knows what antics we'll get from Trump, who's a Gemini,
Oh
this
boy.
weekend. Will there be a golf course meltdown, a Mar-a-Lago meltdown, some meme coin insanity? I don't know. But
Well,
right after
he did just announce his family just announced a new stable coin at the Bitcoin conference this past week that they're calling USD1. Man, those mofos are good at marketing. I hate to give it to them, but it's like just how like okay, we have the US dollar, but they're going to one up it. USD1. I'm like, "Oh,
I mean, it makes me think about like a steak that I wouldn't buy because it was like made
yeah."
with corn-fed beef or
For
something.
sure, but, for the population maybe that voted for him that's out there that's like, yeah, it's just he
He's
knows
been
how to play to his base is what I'll say.
He sure does. But, yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. Just, so to round out just like the more interactive trends of the week, transits and trends. So Mercury Jupiter conjunction, and then Mercury moves into Cancer, and then on Monday, June 9th, Jupiter will follow suit and also head into Cancer. So they're really close together, which means big, bold ideas can be put out there, big messaging. If you do have something you want to share, a new idea, this is going to be perfect for Summit, actually, that Mercury and
Mhm.
Jupiter will be together in the Motor City, in in Gemini. That people will be having all these amazing conversations about the future and how to make it um, a better communal place for all of us. We'll be talking about that and studying that and thinking and chatting and having dinner and,
And I'm excited for that because our talk is going to be about one of our talks is going to be about the second half of the decade. So, and that's a little teaser for you if you're listening, because we have been really working on some cool forecasting for the second half of the 2020s, a retrospective of the first half, just to create some context. And then what did we learn and where are we going? So back when we did our 2020 book, we were looking at how the decade was really split between this heavy, more earth and water energy in the first half with the outer planets, Uranus being in Taurus, Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, which are earth and water signs, and how the second half they're moving in, and Pluto in Capricorn. Now we're going into Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus in Gemini, Saturn and Neptune in Aries. It's all air and fire, and just like how that the energies of that are going to be shaping things. So
we're already seeing like a lot of action happening. Like people are I saw that Greta Thunberg
yeah,
and
she's
a
on a
game
boat.
trying to sail into Gaza to help, but like that just feels like a very, Saturn Neptune, like I'm going to take this action, I'm going to go charging right in, but
Very
I don't think
Aries, kind of
that's been
grandiose
I don't
too.
think it's
Yeah.
worked very well. I think they've actually been, I don't know, fired at or something. But anyways,
Oh boy.
that kind of like
Very Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So the energy of Aries, the ram charging in, I will save the
headstrong.
day and be the hero. But it's very interesting with Saturn and Neptune. And now we're like about a week into, or two weeks in, I think about a week and a half into Saturn's transit through Aries, the first time since early 1999, and Neptune in Aries too. So we haven't seen them together in Aries in forever, but they only are together the same, that close, every 36 or 37 years. So
Right.
the late 1980s, they were together in Capricorn. There was a lot of historical changes then, and here we are again. But in Aries, it's very so Saturn likes boundaries and borders and things concrete, and Neptune dissolves boundaries and anything concrete. So there are these two contrasting forces in this very action-oriented fire sign. We're going to have that going on for the next couple of years. They're going to come exactly together next February. So
Yeah, they just missed each other. Like they
yeah,
got really close in Pisces, but never made an exact conjunction.
yeah, and that's why we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. That's why we named 2025 the year of the divine pendulum, because we are seeing this mid-year swing into a really close-up viewfinder of what the rest of the decade is going to hold. And we're going to go back to the water and earthiness, and then next year it's kind of rocketing off into that futuristic fire and air energies. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's the show has started.
It really has. So, quick, a little request for everyone out there. If you are loving the podcast, we would be so, so thankful if you hit the like, follow, subscribe button, whatever the platform you're on says. And if you're really loving it, share it with a friend and give us a 5-star review. That helps us keep this baby going.
And
So,
thanks to everyone who has given us reviews.
thank you so
And
much.
also, those of you who have booked readings, we've been loving talking to you
Loving
guys.
it.
understand that a lot of people are finding out that we do chart readings through the podcast. So we'll let you know again if you're due for a refresher or you've never had your birth chart read. We have a select number of appointments. So get on the summer schedule and get yourself powered up for the second half of the year. We would love to guide you. astrostyle.com/readings, and we will drop that link in the show notes. So yeah, so back to the planets. Let's talk about Jupiter and Gemini
Well, just a
and
quick
where
little
we've
note,
been.
maybe a quick little note on Mercury and Cancer before
Sure.
we dive in. That's Sunday, June 8th till the 26th. So Mercury in Cancer is a softer time. What do they say? Move softly and carry a big stick, or carry a big claw with you. People may be a little more defensive and prickly, or internal and intimate. You know, it's not exactly the most extroverted Mercury phase. It might even give you a little case of stranger danger, but try not to become a total shut in. Get out and spend time with family, though. Spend time with your inner circle. It's a great time to really catch up with your people. So, you know, now for the big retrospective. Ophi and I made a big old list, and she's going to walk us through, and I'm going to chime in with little bits and bobs of thought. So I pass you the talking stick. Let's
How Jupiter and Gemini
go.
is that? Yeah. So May 25th of 2024 is when Jupiter went into Gemini. And for a little context, Jupiter goes into each sign every 12 years, 11.8 years to be exact. It spends about a year in every sign. Every now and then it does a weird dance between a couple of signs. 2021, I think,
That
in 22.
happens when it's in Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. For at least for the last, I was looking back historically, and it's
I
happened
think I've
for
seen it in like Cancer, Leo, Gemini before. Whatever the case, it's usually, typically just in one sign for about 12 to 13 months. And so it was since May 2024. So for a little context, Jupiter was last in Gemini mid 2000 to mid 2001, and then mid 2012 to mid 2013. So
what years? It was like Y2K and the crash of the dot-com bubble, the bursting, and then we had the Mayan calendar coming to an end, you know.
2012 was a big turning point year for spirituality. Neptune went into Pisces. So it wasn't really Jupiter related, but it was, I feel like it was a significant year with a lot of messages and ideas going around too. So social media and
Dragon
devices.
years.
Yeah, they were all dragon years. So
dragon to snake. It sort of went through the two. Yeah.
yeah. So, you know, and in our 2024 horoscope book, we did a lot of future casting and talked about how Jupiter and Gemini would affect areas like community, education. Both Gemini and Jupiter rule education. Jupiter rules universities. I mean, hello. And Gemini is, you know, the debating and the fighting. Gemini is actually more K through 12. I mean, Harvard and Columbia, the protests, everything like that have been a huge
Messaging,
piece. Yeah.
communication, speaking up and using your voice, or
Yeah, it's been such a huge part of the whole Jupiter and Gemini cycle. But right around the time, we also said unlikely pairings. Gemini is a sign of the twins, but from digital twins and AI to, we said, shifting world alliances and political news. Well, can even be gender related sometimes too. On June 2nd, just about a week and a half after Jupiter first went into Gemini, Claudia Sheinbaum became the first female president of Mexico. And one of the things I thought that there were a lot of world leader things that happened because Jupiter also rules global alliances and politics and that
Yeah,
sort of
let's
thing.
talk a
So,
little bit about Jupiter. Jupiter is Zeus,
mhm,
the god of gods. So while Jupiter is known for being the planet of good fortune and luck and this, you know, in more modern thinking, Jupiter is like this ambassador, this philosopher, but there's also this very heavy-handed, domineering energy, the zealous energy that Jupiter can bring. So
mhm.
the fact that, we're
Steve Bannon is a Sagittarius, which is a sign ruled by Jupiter, for example. Can be very soapbox, preachy, proselytizing,
yeah.
demagogue. So a lot of the politicians that we've been seeing really, you
Yeah, I
know,
mean the debate, Jupiter being in Gemini, you know, Gemini is you're either twinning and cloning or you're like trying to differentiate yourself. And
yeah,
I feel like we've seen Jupiter and Gemini has brought all these localized conflicts, looking at the Middle East, what's happening, looking at Russia and Ukraine, civil wars and uprisings in Sudan and just complete chaos, even the basic civil war that's happening, the
in the United States,
yeah,
politically, just the sharp division
even
between
the
the Democrats and
astrology.
Republicans.
Even the
Yeah,
astrology world is divided between modern and traditional Hellenistic astrologers. So
yeah,
everywhere you look, there's this sort of, you know, we know as twins, we used to, when we were, I remember when we were in fourth grade, we were the only twins in school until then. And then along came Carol and Cheryl, who were our
real
competition.
names.
They were, yes, real name, rhyming twins, wore the same thing every day. And suddenly, we started deciding, well, I did. I bossed Ophi around for a little while. I was like, we now have to wear the same thing every day. So, twin competition. I'm just dropping that in as a little the misuse and abuse of
Was that a
Jupiter and
year of the
Gemini.
dragon? We'll have to go back into our personal photo album history, but yes, Gemini, whatever Jupiter's the supersizer, the magnifier. So whatever it touches, it expands. Gemini was also pop culture and media, so we had a lot of that. One of the things that happened that's kind of funny, June 7th, Pat Sajak took his final spin of the Wheel of Fortune after hosting it for decades, which felt very Jupiter's gambling and luck, and Gemini, that wheel kind
Games.
of
Yeah.
games and wheels. So,
I gotta
um,
say, Jupiter and Gemini was amazing for pop music. Like
yeah,
last summer, we had, the explosion of Chapel Roan. What will be this summer's
Brat Summer. We
yeah,
had
Good Luck Babe? Like, who can top that song? Yeah, we had the Brat, Summer with Charlie XCX, Sabrina Carpenter.
Taylor and Travis as a duo, which is, they were it was very Gemini, like cute couple, like
Hmm.
kind of Gemini is that homecoming. It's very K through 12, whereas Jupiter's university energy, but like the kind of like, oh, the prom king and queen got together and we couldn't stop watching that. So
That's true.
yeah.
And, I mean, she didn't really tour last year, but her stepping aside to go do that made space for some amazing, pop music, which I think of as
Yeah.
Gemini to really go global. Dua Lipa had her, I mean, she's just always there, but she's on tour and yeah.
Yeah.
Cowboy
Well,
Carter came out with Jupiter and Taurus, but the tour
but
is
the tour
happening
is
now.
now Jupiter and Gemini, and who's stealing the show but little Gemini twin Rumi.
Oh, how
So
perfect.
let's get I mean, Blue Ivy is amazing, but we already have been amazed by her. But
She's
then
such a
along came
Capricorn, though. She's just like,
I know she's
you
like
know,
comes on and does her routine, and she's so I mean, she's got that discipline and that Capricorn hustle. But Rumi, you never know. I mean, she's so just so Gemini. Are you going to get the huge smile? Is she going to be bored? Is she going to be annoyed that Blue Ivy's hair is in her face? You know, it's she's like the wild card, which is so Jupiter. So also last June, before Jupiter had even been in Gemini month, tech is ruled by Gemini, and Nvidia overtook Microsoft as the world's most valuable company.
And they engineer chips and software for AI.
And video games too,
Yeah.
which is also more games, more Jupiter, more Gemini. So yeah, I mean, Microsoft was not one that was going to be easily toppled, but along came Nvidia with Jupiter and Gemini.
Talk about how many leaps and bounds there have been with AI in general since Jupiter went into Gemini. You know, Chat GPT, you know, went to 4.1 and soon 4.5. We have Google, you know, Google Gemini,
VO3, yeah.
but you know, Google Gemini is becoming like now
Yeah.
a leader with the VO3
The AI search engine too.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
The search results that all publishers, Jupiter rules publishing and Gemini tech. So online publishing has been wildly disrupted by AI search results, moving people down lower in the search or reorganizing the way we do search. Perplexity and all of I feel like I started really using those AI search engines while Jupiter's been in Gemini more and more.
The way we interact with data altogether has
Information's Gemini, yeah.
I mean, like AI is not going anywhere. That's, you know, and we have to learn how to work with it, how to adapt for it.
I feel like we did. I mean, Jupiter and Gemini brought so many partnering with artificial intelligence to the point where people started using Chat GPT as their therapist, as their gay bestie, as a surrogate boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, like for anything and everything imaginable. I can only imagine the, pornographic things that it's been used for too by
True.
people.
And
Yeah.
even, you know, writing papers. So how is that going to impact, I mean, education, which Jupiter and Gemini covers, like, you know, you're not going to be able to stop students from writing papers with Chat GPT. So how do you incorporate it? Why do we even write papers anymore? Like question, I mean, this is, you know, we've got
Okay, Kourtney
Uranus.
Kardashian, who said
Oh,
school was irrelevant,
she
she didn't
did.
say
Oh,
that. She
yeah.
just was like, "Why do kids even go to school anymore?" How Aries to say
I'm
that.
not saying that in any way, shape,
I
or
know,
form. You
I'm
know,
kidding.
don't call me a Kardashian, thank you. Unless you want to have a twin fight at the very end of Jupiter and Gemini. No, I'm kidding, but kidding, not kidding. You're wearing the same outfit as me at Summit now. Yeah. So no, we just need to reform education. I think that's
Well, that's
something we're
coming
looking at.
definitely in the second half of the decade. We'll be talking about that for sure, especially later this summer when Uranus goes into Gemini.
Yeah.
So, kids, before it's back to school season, you can decide for yourself.
Right?
So yeah, but there has been so much. I mean, Google did the video AI release, all the crypto as well, like all the meme coins and the stable coin. I mean, look, Gemini is that duplicitous double dealing in its lowest vibration. And I mean, the amount of grifting and corruption and deals being made and even just recently, like this whole defense of Donald Trump, like everyone else lied privately. He just says it out in the open. But it is creating this cognitive dissonance for people where they're like, oh, he's not trying to hide it. I mean, I think it was the House Speaker who was just defending that. Well, he's not hiding what he's doing. So therefore, it's like lying in plain sight means it's not a lie.
Gaslighting has gone through the roof
It
with
is,
Jupiter
yeah.
and Gemini, as well as hypernormalization, the term. I was talking about that with our friend Dan Bree this week. Just, you know, hypernormalization was kind of coined for like life in Soviet era Russia, where everything was like crazy going on around you, but people were like, I must go through daily life. I have to compress and like but that cognitive dissonance, like of trying to go on with your normal everyday life, find joy,
Kind
go
of feels
see.
like every day since November of 2024.
Definitely
Yeah.
since January.
January 2025
Now
from the
we have to go back to January a little bit because the fires, the LA fires were, they were a climate, they call it a whiplash effect when there's a sudden change between wet and dry.
more
Uh,
Gemini duality. And that
yeah.
is what they're saying caused the wildfires in LA.
Also, all the planes going down when we think about Jupiter being in detriment in Gemini and all of the
Yeah.
firing of the air traffic controllers and just the older systems getting exposed as well. And just
Also, Jupiter is international and all the border, ICE and anti-immigration stuff, that's the horrible, horrible stuff that's going on there. May that please end with Jupiter leaving Gemini June 9th of this year.
xenophobia.
The
Unfortunately,
protectionism is really out of
I
control.
think with
So
Jupiter going into Cancer, that
that
might
may not.
unfortunately even get more extreme. I hope not. I
I
mean,
hope not. But September 11th happened when Jupiter was in Cancer, and we had such
Mus
anti-Muslim, anti-Middle East sentiment then too. So,
also, what I will say though, and we'll talk about this more next week, but Jupiter in Cancer may at least provide some protection against the Social Security and Medicaid cuts because, the United States is a Cancer. So Jupiter being Jupiter in Cancer is more of, and it loves being in Cancer. It's exalted, one of the best places it could be. So it's like protectionism, yes, but also protecting the vulnerable, women, children. So we might hopefully not see that turn into some Handmaid's Tale bullshit.
I
But
mean, it's going to be interesting because the Jupiter in Cancer energy is going to be square, which is a challenging 90-degree angle to Saturn
Saturn
and
and
Neptune
Neptune.
in Aries, which is war. And I just was reading right before we recorded that Trump is doing this military parade on his birthday on
Yeah.
June 14th, and that there's going to be tanks going through DC. So that is so Aries, such Aries energy, but Jupiter will be out of Gemini, so I don't think it's going to go as well as he hopes it is. So I don't know.
I mean, the just ridiculous bravado and waste of money. Don't even get me
And all
started.
this, Signal Gate with Pete Hegseth, who's also a Gemini. There have been so many Geminis. Marco Rubio was a Gemini. Um, Xi Jinping in China, he's a Gemini. He uh, had a few things that happened while Jupiter was in Gemini to set the stage for an unprecedented fourth term for himself. All the
Mm.
Trump trolling 2028 third term stuff. It's just Gemini's. Jupiter also can inflate the ego like way out of control. So,
I
I
mean, it's
mean,
all been, if we think about the worst of Jupiter and Gemini, it has been just the marketing power of Gemini, which we bow to be honest. Nobody can market like a Gemini. No one can create hype and
hype.
excitement like a Gemini. And then you inflate that with Jupiter's expansive energy. It has been like this crazy hype machine, which again has been good for pop music. The Olympics were out of control, amazing. The
Yeah.
performances there, Simone Biles made
Brat
a comeback.
Summer.
Yeah, the brat,
Yeah.
like, but what it is, it has been all about the hype. Like I think about, Public Enemies, 1990s, Don't Believe the Hype, we've all believed the hype. We don't even know what's hype anymore.
What's
Soon we might
true?
not even know, if you look at Google VO and the 8-second videos, at least there are only 8-second videos that you can make right now with it. But it's like they look so freaking real. And, it's like our reality is absolutely getting screwed with now. So we're going to have to come up with some new benchmarks. And I just think there's so much. So the realm shift has been so much all at once. Like this week is going to also be super helpful with like bring it on back to basics, bring it on back to like, maybe it is hyper normalization, but what can you actually control and what can't you?
Yeah. I mean, looking at some of the other dates that I jotted down. So last June 18th, Putin visited Kim Jong-un in North Korea, and they created an alliance, a pact, weapon exchanges, that sort of thing to protect each other. And so that was one of the global alliances that we had predicted. Now, Putin had not been to North Korea since 2000 when he
Wow.
visited Kim Jong-un's father the last time, or 2 times ago, that Jupiter was in Gemini, a prior dragon year. So that was kind of an interesting but frightening repetition of history. Also in 2000 was when Bill Clinton tried to get Yasser Arafat and Ehud Barak together at Camp David to do some Israeli-Palestinian conflict settling, but it didn't work. Arafat left early, and then we had an intifada that fall. So we see a similar discord in the Middle East, 10,000 times worse now, and very Jupiter and Gemini as well. So,
and an inability to successfully pull off these diplomacy efforts, if you could call them that, or anti-diplomacy, what's happening now. It's like the tariffs, like also the signing of all these executive orders. These are executive orders, and then they get shot down in the court. But it's like this, cosplaying of signing a law in, and people just think, oh my God, the king has spoken.
yeah,
And
they don't
so
know maybe what an executive order's lifespan is, but it's log jamming and tying up resources and confusing people. And Jupiter and Gemini does nothing if not confuse people about who's on your team, who isn't, the shifting alliances, again, the horrible arrests of people who are legal, and just the gaslighting around that too. So one of the things that happened on July 1st, shortly after Jupiter went into Gemini, which has been a huge thing, Donald Trump, who's a Gemini, the Trump immunity. The Supreme Court gave all ex-presidents immunity from prosecution for all official acts. So while he was convicted, he was able to run for president. That was the Jupiter and when Jupiter does come to your sign, it can give you amazing luck. And Donald Trump's timing astrologically gave him that luck that helped him win the election, get the immunity, and just all of that
so this
worked
should
in
be
his
good. This should be
favor.
good for Claudia Scheinbaum,
Yeah, I know. I'm hoping that
Elizabeth Warren.
hopefully not Elon Musk. I mean, he, because it could have been a good time for his cars, but the Cybertruck was a failure. All the Tesla stuff. It was supposed to be a really good time for electric cars. So I was looking at someone parking a Rivian and going, and it's been great in China for electric cars.
Yeah, exactly. Let's Polestar.
Polestar,
All
the
the
robo taxis were
It's funny how
announced.
I feel like all these electric cars from China are now, because of the tariff thing, are now kind of flooding into Europe. So we just didn't get a piece of that excitement here in the United States.
Even though we fancy ourselves the center of the universe here in the USA, Jupiter and Gemini maybe reminded us that we're not so much. So Power outages also were a thing with Jupiter and Gemini. We had the CrowdStrike cybersecurity update that
At an
shut down
airport.
at an airport, which is
Or Jupiter.
Jupiter. Yeah, commuters, Gemini, that was last July. And then this spring, the Spain and Portugal power outage, the grid, just airports have been a tough oh, it's just not been good for air travel. But knocking on wood, since I'm about to get on a plane this June 3rd, July 20th. So Jupiter can be very grandiose and bloviating. And July 20th, when Trump accepted the nomination of the Republican Party to be the presidential candidate, he made the longest speech in history of a nominee for 90 minutes, weaving and
When was the fake assassination attempt again? Was that
that was also over the summer, I think,
Jupiter?
too.
I mean, I
So
call it fake because I'm like, nobody
got
bounces
no
back from
scars.
something like that, like with a fist bump. Come on, dude. Yeah.
No,
Now
there's
I'm a
not even a
conspiracy theorist.
scratch on his ear, but yeah, we're gonna conspire here. So yeah, and then
Right.
the disastrous debate. Also, it wasn't a great year to be a Scorpio. I noticed, from Joe Biden to P Diddy, that all came out during
Well,
Jupiter and
Pluto,
Gemini too.
Pluto, the ruling planet, when it changes signs as it did in 2024, it only changes signs every 12 to 30 years. So it's a really seismic shift and it can be rough
Cat
on the Scorpio.
Sajak, Wheel of Fortune, also a Scorpio. But yeah, the debate, that's also Jupiter and Gemini, communication, sparring, verbally going back and forth. I remember because it was like the day my daughter had her middle school graduation and my parents were in town. And I was like, oh God, I got to watch a debate with my dad, Midwestern, immigrant dad. And then I just was like, I was all ready to be all pissed off. And I remember watching Biden and like, oh no, Jupiter is working for Donald Trump now. Jupiter has gone MAGA. And, and it did. And please
Yeah.
leave Gemini Jupiter. That's all I can say. So, also the death of the Pope, Pope Francis was Sagittarius, the opposite sign of Gemini, and his replacement by the first American Pope, too, which is very locally grown for us, at least, but who's multilingual and did not speak English when he was, I don't know what you call it. Sorry, Jewish girl here, knighted, robed. Oh my gosh, the smoke came out. But when he became the Pope,
Right. But
he,
chosen by the conclave, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And that Jupiter rules religion and philosophy. So that unexpected change of guard that happened,
yeah,
and the impact that'll have, it just institutions like the church, like governments, anywhere that people may seek refuge and solace or resources should benefit, I think, from Jupiter and Cancer. Jupiter and
yeah.
Gemini can, and this is, look,
I think it came in like a wrecking ball. I'm looking at
yeah,
Harvard and Columbia and these universities and all the universities who are now scared to have their federal funding taken away if they don't comply. I'm looking at what was left better and what was left worse in terms of Jupiter Industries. I mean, immigration and anti-diversity and DEI attacks, all of that. It's taken a toll for sure. The wars in the Middle East, Israel and Gaza, Russia, Ukraine, the
canceling of DEI with Jupiter in the opposite of its home sign of DEI focus Sagittarius is that also stands out. How much of this will last? I mean, will compassion return with Jupiter and Cancer, or will people become more fearful, stranger danger, xenophobic, put up their shell. Will Jupiter in Cancer reshuffle power? Will it like your Jupiter, the god of gods, is going into its exalted position? Is there about to be, I mean, we know there's going to be a huge wealth transfer coming up, over time as boomers pass on their homes and as we just see global markets shifting. But yeah, the US has had the largest, GDP of any country for a while now, but will that last? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
will we be able to keep that up? I don't know. And should we? Is our time up for that? I mean,
Well, Pluto was in Capricorn from the signing the Declaration of Independence until November of 2024, November 19th. So we completed a full empire era then, and things have not been the same since. It doesn't mean it's the end, but it also doesn't mean that we should take democracy for granted in any way, shape, or form and assume it's a right and not a privilege. So
yeah,
I
maybe
do think,
Jupiter and Cancer. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, the United States being a Cancer, yes, will probably have an awakening.
I was going to say
But I
the exact
think,
same thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that we need to not take for granted or deny home. This is supposed to be the Statue of Liberty, a woman, a female. Jupiter in Cancer is the sign of the mother, the home, the women. Female leadership is really needed, in my opinion. I mean, all gender bias, none happening here, but I'm just saying, when women lead statistically, when there are more than one woman on a board of a corporation, profits have been statistically measured to go up. Women leaders leave a positive impact wherever they go. So we are going to see new models for leadership, for community coming up. We should not assume that the second half of the 2020s, really starting this week, are going to be anything like what we've ever known before.
I think we can look to some Aries, the cardinal signs too, like Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn too. But Aries and Cancer, I mean, Jasmine Crockett is like
she's an Aries,
outspoken Aries. Who isn't afraid to get in there with them and push back,
I'm a little worried about Elon Musk being a Cancer and having Jupiter and having unchecked power, even though he's out of
tweaking
Doge.
out.
So, yeah. But, at least hopefully Jupiter and Cancer might, neutralize JD Vance a little more. But yeah,
we shall see. We're going to be here with you guys, talking it through every single week, because, well, if astrologers had an actual crystal ball, then what would be the point of this journey through the mortal coil? We like to look ahead and speculate, but we also are
we call
always
it a forecast, not a prediction. A prediction comes from that guru mentality. A forecast is what could happen, likely, but it takes into account the opportunity to exercise free will and make an impact. We want you to always know that you matter, what you do matters. You do have a voice, and you may feel powerless now, especially when you read the news and see what people are getting away with. But we really, we are actively using astrology to help people find openings to make impact in the world. And we will be reporting on that a lot. That's going to be a lot of what we are offering, along with our 2026 book that we're working on now and everything else. So
much happening next year too. Oh my God. But, this year was a warm up for next year. A lot of the the transits that are happening, Saturn and Neptune and Aries, and Uranus going into Gemini for a little while. It's like a preview of these longer cycles that really kick in next year. So if you do feel as if like you can't quite get your bearings this year, that's kind of the design of the year. That's why we called it the year of the divine pendulums, to swing. So working in your internal space, working on, it's a 9-year numerology, which is the end of the cycle, 1 to 9. So it's like really tuning into your internal life, your inner space. It's not the only thing. We don't need to ignore what's happening in the outer world, but there's a lot of power to be had there. And I actually saw Eckhart Tolle. He came to Seattle and spoke a couple weeks ago, and it was amazing to be in the same room as him. It was just him on a chair in this ballroom at the Seattle Convention Center. I could barely see him, but he had screens up. But he just talked about what it is to be human and just to be. And it's like, I really felt like I was back at some early 90s conference.
2012.
Yeah, I was like, but
remember when that used to be an option,
yeah, it was
free
so nice.
Screens. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, this feels old school, but in this beautiful new convention center that just got redone in Seattle. But it was like, the simplicity, the stripped back simplicity that never really fails us, that never goes away, that is always this unifier. So I'm going to leave you with that as
Here's to
Venus.
more of that.
As we enter the week with a quarter moon in Virgo, where can you simplify? Where can you pare back? Where can you do less or spend more time focusing on your, just listening to your breath, concentrating on your breath? That is, yoga 101, but it is the foundation of everything that gives us life. We've got Venus in Taurus and Mercury in Cancer, very homespun, cozy energies coming in for June to kind of counteract the next week. Jupiter in Cancer. So like, I feel like people are reaching kind of their saturation point with the crazy. It's just like, it's not even some of the Trump voters and, semi-MAGA, not the intense ones, but are kind of saying like, enough already. You're scaring us. You're making us crazy. So here's hoping that we can report on, Medicare and Social Security being spared as Jupiter moves into Cancer.
Another good thing. So we'll be with you from Detroit next week, and have a great one. Ride out the rest of Jupiter and Gemini.
Write something, record something,
have that
say
conversation
something.
you've been meaning to have. Just make sure it's a two-way street, not you talking at someone. And we're going to stop talking at you now because this is a extra long episode.
There's a lot to talk about, but maybe you'll know that everything's fine if we're not wearing matching outfits next week. So we'll see you back at you then, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to AstroTwins Radio. If today's episode gave you an aha moment, we'd be over the moon if you left us a 5-star review. It helps fellow astrology lovers find us. And make sure to hit subscribe and follow us on iTunes and Spotify so you never miss an episode. Want the full visual experience? You can also watch the video version on our YouTube at AstroTwins-TV. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at AstroTwins and head over to astrostyle.com to read your free daily, weekly, and monthly horoscope that we write for you with love. Until next time, move with intention and let the universe meet you there.